Oh, hold on, we've lost John Scott.
800 Bombardier,
Oh, I'm coming right back.
He's coming back.
like 2002.
We'll let you get back on this side.
Back on this side.
We're all gonna stand anyway.
I'm standing on the dark side.
All
ready,
right,
Chief.
and with that, call this meeting to order, and we'll start with the pledge to the flag.
I'm gonna do this back.
Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, before we do the roll call part of roll call, we have a letter of resignation from Mr. Stack. Do I hear a motion to accept the letter of resignation?
So moved.
Motion Scott, second Sinkowitz. Further discussion. I do want to note that we'll talk about the process of filling that opening later on in the agenda. Any further discussion? Let me get a roll call vote on that. You haven't really, yeah, let's get a roll call vote. You know who's here.
Scott?
Yes.
Nedrow?
Yes.
Dinklage?
Yes.
McGee?
Yes.
Yes.
Duff?
Yes.
All right, and with that, let us have the official roll call. So, roll call, actually just calling the roll.
Okay. So just the same?
Yeah.
Okay. Scott?
Here.
Nedrow?
Here.
Dinklage?
Here.
McGee?
Here.
Dumont?
Here.
Duff?
Here.
All right, with that, we have no items of correspondence tonight. Additions to business. We do have one addition. I believe we want to have a little discussion around the riverboat, the proposal to use the riverboat this summer. And I'd like to make that item A2. We have some people here from the committee, so that way we can get them in and address it right after we talk about the sewer. Do we have any other items to add? I have none. Hearing none, do I hear a motion to approve the agenda with the addition of riverboat at item A2?
So moved.
Motion Sinkowitz, second Duff. Further discussion? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. All right, brings us to our first call to the public. Before I open the first call, I do want to mention that we're going to have a public hearing on the sanitary special assessment district. I believe, Mr. Powell, are you going to at least give a quick overview of that before, at the top of that? So we'll get to that. We'll get a quick overview of the process, where we are. I think a lot of you have seen this before, but if you haven't, hopefully that'll answer a lot of the questions that people have. Then we'll open up for public comment in that. And so I would say if you have questions specific to that, hold them off for the public hearing on that. This is just the regular first call to the public. It's an opportunity for residents to address council on any and all business items. So with that, I open the first call. Seeing none, I will now close the first call to the public. We'll move through the agenda and get to that public hearing really quickly. Next item, approval of consent agenda. Do I hear a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved.
Second.
Motion Dumont, second Duff. Further discussion? Roll call vote.
Scott?
Yes.
Nedrow?
Yes.
Dinklage?
Yes.
McGee?
Yes.
Dumont?
Yes.
Duff?
Yes.
All right. That takes us down to public hearing on sanitary sewer special assessment district number 4. Mr. Powell, if you want to give folks an overview of where we are.
Thank you, Council. A couple months ago, we had an informal meeting with all the residents that had at least some interest in signing up to connect into the sanitary sewers here in the village. That was very well attended, and it appeared as most of the people were very interested in continuing with the process. Therefore, I believe last month the council made a motion to intend to establish a special assessment district. Tonight is the first public hearing then to actually establish that special assessment district. And all this does now is establish the boundaries of what that district is going to represent. And in this particular case, it is a 100% voluntary special assessment district. These are the district. This is the kind of district that every council person, every politician loves, because if they don't want to be part of it, they don't have to be, and so it's all favorable and voluntary. That being said, this is the meeting tonight that residents have the opportunity to say that they are interested in continuing with it, and or that they would like their names pulled off of it. Since it's voluntary, there's no problem with them removing their name. But what this is really is the ability to take the costs of the connecting to the sanitary sewer and spread those costs out over 10 years. Very little additional costs, although I have to mention that there's an attorney involved in the bonding costs and a minor amount of interest, but that loan is spread out over 10 years with normally it's about a 4% interest rate, and our treasurer can elaborate that on more if council has some other questions. So what happens is, this is one of two public hearings left. This one will establish the special assessment district. The next one would be to finalize or confirm the assessment rolls, and that will determine, then you'll confirm exactly what each resident would pay for connecting into the sanitary sewer and actually for the selling of the bonds. What we do in this particular case is to make it all the same. We kind of determine an average cost for everyone to connect into the sanitary sewer, so everyone gets the same benefit. Some people will be spending a little less, some people spending a little bit more, but the benefit is the same. Everyone will obtain the same assistance in tying into the sanitary sewer if council goes forward with this. If it continues forward, the residents then would call the village. The village would contact myself and my office. We would go out and meet with each and every person individually, each homeowner individually. We determine we kind of do a site plan. And for those of you in the audience that don't have this, or those watching online, we can get these to you. But we go out and we meet with the homeowners, and we develop an individual plot plan for everyone. We go through all the costs. We determine where their septic fields are. We determine where they might want the grinder pump. And so their connection is specific to their property. We don't do any generalizations. When we meet with them, we go through all the options that people can have, and we develop a plan like this. Based upon this plan, then, we then come up with the line item costs for every single expense that would be involved in connecting to the sanitary sewer. It's all itemized out here, and the way this is laid out, we determine the entire cost, the cost of the monies that the SAD loans them, and then the balance is what they would have to pay out of pocket. And it's usually about $1,000 out of pocket, something like that. And so it doesn't confuse everyone. There are only a couple items that can't be assessed, and that is really the tap fees for the village. The law does not allow the village to sell bonds to pay the village tap fees, but all third-party costs, all the cost of Commerce Township, all the contractor costs, all the other costs are paid for, can be paid for through the SAD. That being said, if council has any questions, or if the public has any questions during the process, I am more than happy to address anything. Certainly the administrator, the attorney, or Mike might have some other issues as well.
Yes.
Mr. Powell, just for clarity, people don't have to decide this evening if they want to remove themselves from the list. They can do that up to the next hearing, is that correct?
That is correct. Remember, there's one more hearing, and the council will determine, even if you're part of the special assessment district, you can't take your name out of that district in the next meeting, but the people can in fact say, I don't want to be part of it, so council can say, all right, your assessed value is really zero. So in essence, you're still in the SAD, but you are going to be assessed zero for your benefit because you've decided not to go forward. That is correct.
All right. I think with that, I would entertain a motion to open the public hearing. So moved. So motion Nedrow, second Duff. Further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Let's ask folks to, well, we've got Mr. Powell out there with the microphone, so we can hand it out there. take questions and/or comments if you have them.
What time frame?
Oh, name and address and then.
2051 South Commerce, Anthony Morale. What timeline are we looking for? Like, between now and the next meeting and then going forward with
Okay.
construction?
Council usually sets the next meeting themselves, but it's typically in 30 days. The only items that has to happen between this meeting and the next meeting is the attorney has to be brought in and the selling the bond fees, and so their costs have to be incorporated in the SAD. But really, it's 30 days from now, council can establish the next public hearing. We can, in fact, if somebody thinks they're going to continue on, we can actually start that individual meeting with the residents as early as tomorrow, really. We don't have to wait until the next public hearing. But normally, after council adopts and sets the assessment roll, the next public hearing, that means the SAD goes through and council then can sell the bonds, and that gets them the money to be able to pay the contractor to put your sewer in. So we can meet with you anytime, and then we can, it's probably going to be, Mike, what's the typical time between the finalists and the selling of bonds?
The next public hearing will be in February, and at that time, we'll also pass the bond resolution. We then go to market, and I didn't read, just before I walked up the stairs here, I got a memo from walked down the stairs, a memo from our financial advisor, but once we have bond proceeds in the spring, we can proceed accordingly, and it shouldn't be a big time lag between February and getting the bond proceeds. The only issue will be with the uncertainty now, with the tax changes. We're going to see who the players are in this market. The last several issues we've sold have been purchased by banks, but it's not exactly clear as to whether it's still that advantageous for them.
But usually, once we pass that resolution it'll be at our February 14th meeting.
Right.
Everything proceeds quickly from there. And I should say, we talked about this in the informal meeting. If you're in an emergency situation and you really need to hook up very quickly,
Yes.
let's talk with the administrator and we'll see what we can work out.
Right.
Bob Malik, 1620 Thurston. I'm not in that area for any of that, but if you have 18 people that want to participate, okay, and you come out to this gentleman's house, if he's having it done, and look his things over, and then he finds out a price and decides to back out, is he going to be charged for the service of you coming out and estimating what is needed?
Yes, once the SAD goes through, they really can't back out once they're in the SAD because bonds are being sold. But the bottom line is, the estimate is going to be within, $1,000 each way of what the estimates are that I had passed out at the SAD or these.
But you made the
So-
statement that I could come out tomorrow. My point being, you're not going to have a final meeting till February. That's why I
That's
ask, if you come out tomorrow, will they incur a cost that they're going to be nailed with if they decide to back out?
Yeah, the only cost that they would be nailed or have to pay is the $450 site visit fee. And that's what we then use to meet with the people, do that drawing, and hand in the individual costs. Other than that, that's the only cost that they would incur until such time they wanted to connect.
Well, I didn't want anybody to get alarmed and find out that they want to back out, that, okay, now they're being charged for something
Yes.
they're not going to go with.
And I also want to mention that this doesn't mandate that people have to connect immediately. So we've had people that have been part of this special assessment district, and they've waited 7, 8, 9 years to connect. So there's no mandatory connection time, but certainly there's some advantage to doing it sooner than later.
One other question, I had mentioned a number, and I just picked it out of the air, 18. So let's say you got 18, and then you figure up a cost, but before the next meeting, the two people decide to come out. Is that going to change that bottom line?
It doesn't change I'm sorry, go ahead, Mike.
It could, but we have 43 people signed up right
Yeah.
now, Bob, and what we have is a fixed cost. The financial advisor and the bond attorney who's opining that we're able to sell these on a tax exempt basis. So that fixed cost will be divided among the number of people on the roll. So that's what we don't know yet until we have an absolute confirmation, which is essentially the purpose of the next public hearing.
All right, I just didn't want anybody to, like I said, I'm not in that district, but I didn't want anybody to have any surprises after the fact, so
Very
thank
wise,
you.
Bob. Thank you.
Any, yeah.
Hi. My name is Carol Ames, 1863 Ladd. So the site visit cost, is that part of what's calculated in here as well?
It is.
You
and
mentioned
You
the-
see that towards the top, if I can go through all my crazy paperwork here. It is item number 6. It's already included in there.
Okay.
And I had misquoted, it's actually $500 now, not $450.
Oh, okay.
Every minute
Can we
it
go
goes
back to
up, right?
450 now?
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
Anybody else?
Well, Mike, I'll ask.
Oh,
Go ahead, I'm sorry.
let's go with the members of the
Absolutely
public
with the
first.
audience.
Yep.
No problem.
Jim Kelly, 2264 Benstein. This is my first meeting about this, so if you want to direct me to find this on my own, let me know. But what's the advantage of going to the, hooking up to the sewer system as opposed to, your own septic tank?
You need to go research that yourself. No, I'm kidding. Certainly, the septic field that you have now, if you're not hooked to the sewer, every time you use water in the house, it goes into your septic tank and then out into a field in your yard. That needs maintenance, so every third year, fourth year, fifth year, some people let it go longer than that. You need to have your septic tank pumped out to maintain your field a little bit. And you can continue doing that. The village has an ordinance, however, and if let's say if your septic system failed, now you're dealing with the Oakland County Health Department, and they just passed new rules about a year ago that really has increased the cost in repairing your septic systems. But you could typically still do that, but the village has an ordinance that says if your septic system fails, you must connect to the sewer if it's available, or if you wanted to add an addition to your home that's over 10 square feet in size, you must connect.
100 square feet.
I'm sorry, 10 by 10, 100 square feet. Otherwise, a woodshed would, no, 100 square, thank you. 100 square feet, you must connect to the sanitary sewer as well. So if you're connected to the sanitary sewer, now all that area that is used by septic system in your yard can now be utilized to enhance a garage or expand your house or something like that.
But you'll have to pay sewage for the rest of your time there, right?
Yes, I believe it's about $150 a quarter, if I'm not
It's like
mistaken.
136.
$136 a quarter.
That'd be a year, basically?
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Anybody else? Oh, there we go.
I think I asked before, is there other people in the village that are on the system currently? And is it
Yes.
very
quite-
reliable?
Quite a few. In fact, I'm on the,
Oh, okay.
the system. We had an old septic field that was failing and actually needed to be pumped out much more frequently than every other year. It's been really reliable. It's worked well. Once it's installed, Oakland County formerly Oakland County Drain Commission, now Oakland County Water Resources Commission, takes over the sewer. They send you your bill. If anything happens to it, there's an alarm on it that goes off automatically if something fails, or if you see it, you can call into their number. They dispatch people. They have a lot of trucks. We did have one small issue. They came out immediately, sorted it out, and essentially all of the infrastructure of it becomes theirs, from basically your grinder pump on out. So it's been really reliable for me. I know a few other folks.
I
have
was
been
the
hooked
first
up.
one to hook up, I believe, on Laguna.
Yeah.
When we first got sewers in the village. And like John says, it's been really reliable. I've had maybe 3 or 4 occurrences where I've had to call the Water Resources Commission. They came out within an hour, generally within about 20 minutes, half hour. They carry a pump on the truck, so if there's a problem with the pump, there's a problem with one of the floats, I mean, they come in, they replace it. They don't even screw around trying to fix it. They'll completely replace the pump, and it's taken back and rebuilt. So it's really been pretty easy to deal with.
Correct.
Wait, let me make sure we answer this one, and then I'll go to you, Mr. Miller. So, I guess that's the answer. So far, we've had very few complaints from people who are hooked up. Obviously, you end up having to pay a sewer bill. The flip side is you don't have to pay as much to have your septic tank down. Sewer bill adds up to more than that. but
And there's a
it-
little electric fee on,
Yeah,
because
there-
you have to
there's a
tie
little
in your
bit of
grinder
electric
pump is
usage,
tied
too.
into your electric panel, so
Um,
there's a little bit of,
Yeah, and they
220
also
power.
generally have accommodation for hooking up to a
Generator.
generator if there is a power failure overall. So,
Yeah.
does that answer your question?
I just have one, I'm sorry about asking a question.
That's exactly what the
That's what we're
session's
doing
for.
here. That's right.
I do have a weak system like yourself, and say I needed someone to come out and give me a valuation right away and have someone put it in for me. Is that possible? And would that be, I could get reimbursed and be on the 10-year program that way?
Are you-
If something happens before they start
So
building the...
I think my question is going to be, are you part of this SAD
Yes,
currently?
yes, my name is on it.
Okay, I think probably this is a situation where we'd like to get the engineer out. We'll talk about what you need, what your needs are, what the scheduling around that would be.
Okay.
And then I think we'll be able to work something out.
Okay, thank you.
All right, Mr. Malik.
Again, Bob Malik, 1620 Thurston. You pointed out there is an additional charge to hook up electrically, because if power does go out, you don't have a flush system unless you're hooked up to the generator system. So, I mean, people need to know that. There's an additional cost also.
Yeah, I think the cost Brian was talking about was actually just monthly you use a small amount
Yeah,
of
operating costs for
electricity
electricity.
to.
Oh, yeah, well, again, I'm just spelling it out because I've sat here and listened and seen before, and you don't want anybody missing something after the fact. They
Yep.
say, well, I didn't know that. And again, if the power goes out and you're not hooked to that, then you don't have a sewer system that works. Same thing with your power goes out and your well doesn't work. So,
I don't get water in, I can't get water out.
It works out that way. Anybody else, public hearing? Oh, there we go.
Yeah, I wasn't sure what these bonds were and stuff. So with the financial planner, that you have one that you're working with already?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And are we made aware of that, like who that's with, if we're interested in getting bonds, purchasing that?
Oh, you mean buying them yourself?
Uh-huh.
Well,
Oh, this,
No, we sell them. We don't- we
Typically,
don't
a
buy.
bank is gonna, a bank has bought the last several issues, lock, stock, and barrel, and held them in their own portfolio, and not for resale. Brokers are probably not gonna look at a deal this small, but if that were the case, if we do get, bids from, we don't know who, but, sometimes it's syndicates of different banks or other financial institution, trust departments and so forth, then yes, they would make those bonds available unless they had a buyer in mass.
Yeah, I would say typically with this sort of sale, we do end up with just one purchaser for the whole thing. It's really on the small end of municipal bond sales, so people who want to do, institutions that want to do larger purchases and then break them out and sell them usually go after a much larger bond. Anybody else? All good questions.
Hi, Rob Zawatsky, 2379 Athol. This gentleman mentioned it over there earlier. Who would we talk to about an emergency situation?
Let's have you call the village, talk to the administrator and the engineer.
Okay, thank you.
We certainly try to get to the emergency connections, obviously, first, and everyone understands that. So we don't want somebody to live without sewage, and we don't want those septic fields overflowing as well, so.
Anybody else?
on this sheet again, the cleanouts, what is that?
All right, some people in the older homes typically are this case. When you have a pipe running from your house out to a septic field or out to a sewer or something like that, the modern code has a requirement that there be covers that you can take off of the sewer to clean that sewer out. And so it's just a matter, if your house doesn't have one on the outside of your house, typically the contractor will have them put one in so that it can be cleaned if it gets clogged at all. And that's on the house side. That's between the house and the grinder pump that we would be putting in that ties into the sewer. So, and I would go over that with anyone in their specific case.
When you issue those bonds, you'll publish it in the paper, locally?
Wait a second, let's get the microphone to you, just so people.
Oh, just a follow-up to that. So it says like $100 each, times how many times? What is typically?
Every house is different. Sometimes we have two, sometimes we don't have any, sometimes we have one. And again, that will be specifically identified when I meet with you as a homeowner.
That's good, this gentleman.
Yeah, the bonds, don't they have to legally publish those somewhere, the purchase or issue of them?
So well, go ahead, Mike.
We do, but that's going to be in the aftermath or after the second public hearing. And typically, that's not done like in a local paper or whatever. That's going to be done in, like financial magazines and so forth. There is something like that, yeah.
But if you were interested, you could
So you
see
mean
that
purchase
somewhere,
one?
right?
To purchase one?
No, if you're interested in the process, what happened, you can find it in a publication somewhere, right?
Yeah, but it's not something of general circulation. You have to probably get with me, and I could show you where it'd be published.
I know there's a trade journal called Bond Buyer, which lists all upcoming municipal.
We haven't gone that
issues.
route in the past, but we may this time. Yes, sir.
Frank Arabo, 1845 Shankin Drive. How are you? If we meet with you, does that mean we can get started right away, or still got to wait for the meeting? I mean, does that make us go faster if we meet with you? And the other question is, if we are sewer ready, where our sewer comes out to the street when we build the house, how is that going to help us with the cost of the sewer?
Well, it certainly helps with the cost if you're sitting there and your house is ready to be connected to the grinder pump. That certainly cuts costs down. We don't have as much piping to put in between the house and the grinder pump. Yes, if you are an emergency or you're ready to go, it would certainly help to meet with us first so we can get you in the queue as one of the first ones instead of one towards the end. With 40 homeowners, if they all want to be connected at the same time, obviously the contractor can't do but a few a week. And so it might take a month and a half, 2 months to get everybody connected.
It's not an emergency, but, just if we can get connected.
Yes.
Okay.
Right.
Thank you.
All right. Anybody else? Seeing none, I would entertain a motion to close the public hearing.
So moved. Second.
Motion Demott, second Duff. Further discussion? Roll call vote.
Scott.
Yes.
Nedrow.
Yes.
Sinkwitz.
Yes.
McGee.
Yes.
Dumont.
Yes.
Duff.
Yes.
All right. Public hearing is closed. Thank you, everybody. And a reminder that we will be, I believe we have another public hearing before, next month, too.
February 14th.
Yep. So we're going to have another public hearing then. And if you have any questions in the meantime, just call the office and we'll see what we can work out. We really just want to make sure everybody's as informed as possible as we go through the process. Okay, with that, that brings us to item 12A, resolution determining to undertake an improvement project and establish and maintain a special assessment district to pay costs associated therewith and approving the plans and estimates of cost 2018 Lakes Area Number 4 sanitary sewer individual hookup special assessment. Don't say that 10 times fast. Everybody, you should have updated resolution for item 12A. We did have one person drop out, so it's updated the roll. So that'll be the resolution that we're going to be voting on. Do I hear a motion to approve the resolution as presented in updated resolution for item 12A?
So moved.
Motion Duff, second Scott. Further discussion? Roll call vote.
Scott.
Yes.
Nedrow.
Yes.
Sinkwitz.
Yes.
McGee.
Yes.
Dumont.
Yes.
Duff.
Yes.
All right. Motion is approved. So we are on our way, and next month we can do the final approval. Brings us to item 12A2, not at all related to sewers, but we had some folks from this committee, and I wanted to get them up towards the top of the agenda. riverboat, and this is specific to the riverboat and the potential to use it as a fundraiser for the Veterans Memorial. I believe we have a request to step back from that. Mr. Sinkwitz, you want to give us the update there?
Well, we met up in the upper chambers and we discussed it, and the point was brought up that if we spent approximately $12,500 to have the riverboat here, that by the time you get all the volunteers and you put everything together, you got to count on the weather for certain days, and we were planning on a 4-day event, that the chances were very, very possible that we could break even or lose money. So it was suggested that instead of using the 12.5 to bring in the boat, do all the work, and take all those chances of not being successful in having a large turnaround, that the village council use that money as part of the, put that into the fund for the memorial, and we'd forget about the boat.
Okay, so I think it's probably wise for a variety of reasons to step back from the riverboat. In terms of funding for the memorial, I think it is appropriate that the village would be putting something into what we do there. I think what probably we should do is have the committee come up with some proposed, some proposed budget, some proposed finances around it. We're about to head into the budget cycle, so it's a really good time to look at it and decide how much to put in. So.
Yeah, it was kind of disappointing. I think everybody was for the idea, and I think a lot of the people in the community I talked to were all for the idea of the boat, because it's been a couple, 3 summers since it's been here. But, breaking even or making a couple $1,000s was not to anybody's benefit. And in the past, the boat was here for much longer time than a 4 or 5 day span, so you figure you're gonna have 1, maybe 2 days of inclement weather, and you get 2 cruises a day, it can really add up quick where you're not gonna cover your nut. So we are gonna look for the village to step up to the plate and make up the difference.
Okay, so I think since we did pass a motion to proceed with that, I think probably we're going to need a motion to not proceed. Do I hear a motion to not proceed with the riverboat this year?
So moved.
Motion Duff, second Nedrow. Further discussion on that motion? Roll call vote.
Scott?
Yes.
Nedrow?
Yes.
Sinkwitz?
Yes.
McGee?
Yes.
Dumont?
Yes.
Duff?
Yes.
Okay, so we won't go with the riverboat. We'll send it back to the committee to look over the finances, look over, expenses, fundraising, what we have, and let's talk about the specifics in the budget cycle.
That would work.
All righty.
The other thing that, just to go along with that, and we're looking at having, like we did with the village logo, and it was a unanimous decision that we're going to set up, the dates haven't been confirmed, but probably something by or before Memorial Day, like a contest. And we're going to put it all together to design a memorial for that particular area. We want to pick out an area that we're going to do it, and we're talking about putting a flag, like a monument, where we want that monument to be, and then keep track of, have either a like a thermometer or a scorecard. So we will have all that in a more professional form and letter that the Spinal Column can take to the public for the next meeting.
Okay.
That's it.
And I think, by the way.
Anybody back there, Debbie, any of the committee, anything I missed?
No, I think that sounds wonderful.
All right, thank you.
Thanks. And we've talked about it before, but I think the idea of having a design competition is great. It really spurs a lot of public interest, and I think we should get some really good ideas out of it. All right. Item B, process of filling the vacancy on council. You should find in your packets a summary of the process that we have used in the past, and it's certainly what I would like to do this time as well. We have an opening. The person who fills this opening will need to stand again in November 2018. Our usual practice has been to post that we have an opening, publicize it as well as possible, set a date for applications, get them in, hold some interviews, and select a candidate. So that's the way I would like to proceed.
I have a little different theory on this, and it wasn't that long ago where we had two candidates step forward to fill the vacancy. And both the candidates, from what I can recall in our meeting, were very respected.
Actually, let me stop you for a second. We actually had 4 candidates step forward in that meeting.
I'm sorry, you're right, the 4.
Yeah.
But there was 2 that were finals, right?
I don't know that we set it up as a finalist. We had varying degrees of strength of the candidates. We were all, I think, pretty pleased with what we took, but there were 4 in that meeting.
Well, I guess what I'm thinking of is that if we post it, and by the time we get it done, and then we put somebody in it, we're gonna put somebody who could quite possibly have absolutely no experience for 6 or 7 months. We have a candidate who I thought did an exceptional job on the interview, with the experience, Mr. Mallett, and that would be an easy, he's been on the council for many years, he's been there, and we're only looking for somebody to fill in for 6 or 7 months. So I think that's an option that council should at least discuss or think about.
So I guess here's what I would say, because I've served with Mr. Malik on councils before, have really esteemed him as a fellow council person. I think he'd be a very good candidate. I think it's incumbent on us, whenever we have an opening, to go through essentially a full and open job interview process. It's an opening for the public. I want it to be as publicly open as possible. When you make a nomination and go to a candidate without going through that process, it certainly raises the appearance that there could have been deals, there could have been things that went on in the back, and we want everything that we do to be out in the open, as public as possible, as open as possible. So I don't think we're going to have to wait long. I think we can post, take applications in. We could probably hold a hearing the Monday before our next meeting. That gives people, pretty much fully a month to think about whether they want to apply, for us to hold a special session and have somebody on by our February meeting. I don't think we're going to go very long without somebody on council. So that's the process I'd really like to see us follow. Other council?
I think we discussed this maybe 3 meetings ago, if I'm not mistaken. Could be longer. But the concept of going back through the normal process, application, interview, and nomination.
Yeah, I think the context we discussed that we're through the regular elections.
Exactly so.
But it's within it. I just think it's the right way to do it. So that's what I'd like to see us do. I see nodding heads. I don't see much further discussion. So it may be that what we should proceed to before we go to actually fill out a motion here is, if we were to go through our regular process, we could hold a special session on Monday, February 12th. I do want to pick a day when we can try to have everybody here, and then that would give us a chance to hold that meeting before our February 14th meeting. I think we could certainly give people 2 or 3 weeks and move up to an earlier date, but that's kind of, I think, the best.
So you're saying on February 12th, we'll pick a person?
Yep. Does that sound reasonable to folks? I'll give you a minute to check your calendars. I think I see general concurrence. And if we were to do that, then to step back from that date, February 7th would be, I think that would be the Wednesday. That would give us the village time to get everything in, compile it, get it to us on the Friday, so we have the weekend to review the applications and come in. Nathan, does that sound like a good timeline to you?
Mhm.
Council?
Sure. Yep.
With that, let me get back to my agenda item. Do I hear a motion to proceed to fill the opening on council with interviews to be held February 12th, a cutoff for applications on February 7th, and publicity for the opening as we have done in the past?
So moved.
Motion Dumont, second Duff. Further discussion on the motion? Hearing none, roll call vote.
Scott?
Yes?
Nedrow?
Yes.
Sinkowitz?
No.
McGee?
Yes.
Dumont?
Yes.
Duff?
Yes.
All right, motion carries. Thanks, everybody. We will proceed that route. All right. Item C, resolution proposing charter amendments for November 2018 ballot. So we have a wrinkle here. We did discover one more item that needs to be amended to comply with the other amendments that we made, and it's with regard to the term of filling in somebody. We have time to get that before us, tabled, put back together, and everything put back, sent on to the state with plenty of time to put the amendments on the ballot in November. Jennifer, would you care to maybe explain that a little further?
Sure. In your group of charter amendments that you have seen previously that have been on the table, one of those amendments addressed your election process for council members and when that election would commence. What was discovered in the recent conversations about the vacancy and resignation was that also for resignations and vacancies, there's a reference in the charter, that same similar reference. So in order to match those two different charter provisions, you need another amendment to the charter. So our office talked to the AG, the Attorney General's office, and we've put together a ballot proposal, and that's what this is about this evening. You're gonna put it on the table for 30 days. The AG, actually, I think you guys looked at this charter process, I wanna say it was 15 years ago or so when I worked on this, and the same AG that I worked with then is the one I'm working with now.
That's stability in that office.
It really is. So he's a really great guy, and he said, send me all your stuff, I'm gonna look at it, I'll give you some suggestions and revisions if there's any comments, before we actually finalize it and get it in the final ballot form. So tonight, all you're doing is this amendment number 9, recognizing and putting on the table for 30 days. Next month, what we'll do is we'll take that amendment number 9 and the previous 8 and send them all on to the AG's office.
So really, we would want to take the previous 8, keep them on the table for another,
Yes.
until our
30
next
days.
meeting.
Yes.
We're gonna put this one on the table.
Yes.
So, can I just do that all in one motion?
Yes.
All right. So do I hear a motion accepting and proposing amendment number 9, placing it on the table until our February 14th meeting, and continuing the previous 8 proposed amendments on the table until the February 14th meeting?
So moved.
Motion Duff.
Second.
Second Dumont. Further discussion? And I believe that keeps all of our trains running down the track, right? Okay. So, I know that was a little convoluted. Is that reasonably clear to everybody? All right. Further discussion? Roll call vote.
Scott?
Yes.
Medrow?
Yes.
Haywood?
Yes.
McGee?
Yes.
Huron?
Yes.
Stock?
Yes.
Thank you, council. All right, so we'll get them all together and we'll send them off in February. Okay, brings us to item D, options for LED message signs. You should find on the table in front of you some additional LED sign quotes. You will not find cheaper than our previous LED sign quotes, but we do have some additional ones. Nathan, you want to tell us what we have here?
Yeah, what I tried to do this month, I know the quotes we had last month were a little complicated because they were quoting two signs and the numbers were doubled. And so if you look in your packet, and we have some drawings up there as well, in your packets, what I did is I just put the full price up at the top corner with a little summary of what we're looking at. We have the dimensions, the specifications of everything. And so we have 3 different companies now that have supplied 7 individual quotes. I did also include some documentation of another company I reached out to that we did not get a quote back from. And so I really just wanted to put this back up for discussion. If you look at the quotes, the lowest we have is $22,345. That would be for this sign you're looking at here, which is a very nice sign. The only downfall with that is that the amount of text we can put on is significantly limited. It's about half the amount of messaging we could put on compared to the other signs. That we could do 2 lines of text. The other signs could do 4. We also wouldn't have the ability to do graphics on this sign, but we would with the others. Sign Graphics out of Farmington Hills is a company that we've worked with quite a bit. They supplied 3 quotes of 3 different options. Very familiar with them. There's another company based in Florida that submitted a quote, but I was a little uncomfortable with some of that because they told us that we'd have to hire an electrician on our own to connect the sign to the electric source, and it got a little weird there. That's not really what we're looking to do. We're looking for the company to handle start to finish and give me an all-inclusive cost, and so I'm not sure that their estimates really are all-inclusive, and that's a little bit of a concern. And then the latest quote that, I don't think we have don't have those images ready to show, but on your desk you'll see a quote from a sign company based in Brighton. Beautiful sign, significantly more expensive than what we were looking at. These range from $52,000 to $59,000. And they're a little bit of a different material and a little bit of a larger message board. And so I think we have a pretty good grasp on what something like this would cost. And I really just wanted to restart the discussion of whether or not this is the right time to consider this. We have budgeted $40,000 in this year's budget for a sign. This would replace the sign at Glengarry and South Commerce that currently doesn't light up and is a manual sign. And so it would be a pretty significant upgrade. We would be able to change the messages from our computer in the office, which is cool. We could update it as needed, as opposed to sending a staff member down to open the case and manually piece it together. So it would be nice for us to have this. These are fairly common now with libraries and municipalities and even private sector businesses as well. So just up for discussion. Interested if you liked anything that you saw, if you felt good about the pricing, and certainly it's council's desire of what we do here.
So actually, before we go to the science physics, I did have a question about whether it would be possible to use some of our cable franchise funds towards this expenditure, because those are, for communication out to the community. It is an electronic communication device for the community, and I just have no idea if it's within the bounds of things we are permitted to spend that on.
We might have to look into that, Mr. President. I'm not sure. We do currently have on hand about $56,000 that's been accumulated over the last couple of years. And so it might be a good solution.
Okay.
She said yes. Go
Oh.
for it.
Use those funds. No problem, we can use those funds.
So,
That's a quote.
So, longtime cable franchise representative from Wolverine Lake, Jerry Mikowski, assures us it's within the bounds of that. And I would like to see us use those funds, because there are sort of limited things that we've been able to do. We've put together the online presence with the help of Ken. We've got the sign up. We've got some equipment. But I think it's potentially a really appropriate use of that money, so. Okay, now to the individual signs and further discussion.
Yeah, Nathan, I guess when I'm looking up there, there's two of them. Is this the one that, on the first page of our book here, the 28?
Yeah, there's, the first one is quoted at 28,791. Is that what you're looking, yeah, that's the page you're looking at there, Ed.
Okay, and that does the 4 lines.
That does 4 lines, it also does graphics, and it is a larger sign.
What about this one here?
That one will do
That's
4
Stewart.
lines. It'll do 4 lines, and it'll also do graphics. The problem is that price does not include whatever we would have to include to have an electrician come out and actually finish the job, which is not really something I was looking. I don't want to break this up into numerous contractors. I was hoping to hire a company and
Well,
have it done start to finish. So my concern is that the cost would actually inflate.
And that cost ends up not being quite an apples to apples comparison.
Right.
Yeah, and the only other thing is, though, is that I'm sure that this company that's putting in them, they don't have, more than likely, they have an electrical contractor that they hire to do the job, so.
Right.
I don't know if that's all encompassing guarantee because they did it and it was their guy, or if there's an electrical problem, you call the electrician and put it in.
The prices for the 3 quotes from Sign Graphics and the 2 quotes from the company in Brighton, which is on your desk, those are supposed to be all-inclusive. The only one I'm not sure about being inclusive is the other company, because of their comment about the electrician and how we would be responsible for that. The prices are pretty similar from top to bottom between the first 2 companies. There is a familiarity with one, and there's not a familiarity with the other.
And as far as the size of the screen, they're about the same?
Yeah. For the
Because
ones
this,
that-
I mean, I just, in the appearance here, I mean, it sticks right out, it's 4 by 8, I don't know.
87 is a little.
87 inches.
Yeah, one is a little wider and one's a little taller. But in general, what the information we can put out is going to be the same on either side, the amount of information we can put out. The most expensive option of the first group is, do you still have the stone monument? They designed this to sort of match what we have here at Village Hall with the stone work here. Now, obviously, this would be separate down the road, but that's the most expensive option because that's actually a stone base they would be using. It's not a plastic facade. They were proposing stone. If we didn't want to go with that sort of extra decorative route, the others are just aluminum bases.
Yeah, I would think that would be more than sufficient because we put some plant life around it and everything, that would be nice.
Is there any difference in guarantees, in terms of life guarantees?
They're all very similar. They all operate pretty much the same way in terms of what needs to be installed to be updated remotely. And they're all, there's not much difference between guarantees. These signs would all, they would last a long time. Obviously, there's more that can go wrong when you're dealing with an electric sign, but the guarantee, the warranty would be sufficient to cover us.
Typically, what is the guarantee or?
Like year-wise, that one quoted 120,000 hours worth of use, which
Yeah.
that's pretty much forever. And they're all similar. We would not go into contract with a company without a warranty that would protect us for the long term.
So council's pleasure here. I think I'd like to proceed, and I think the sign graphics ones are the most, they're the most practical. They match what we do. We're familiar with their work, and they've done a good job. I really like the stone base, but I think Mr. Sinkowitz's point that we're likely to put some landscaping around it and very little stone will be visible is probably so. So, if we want to proceed, we do have funds. I would entertain a motion to proceed if we have a preference here, and I would just say that when we make that motion, let's include with funding to come out of cable franchise fees if appropriate.
I'm gonna make a motion, but I wanna make sure that, since Nathan has been dealing with these people and you've got the inside, and you know what we want, and with the plastic sign, so would that be, this one right here?
Sign graphics.
Sign graphics.
Yeah, the first one, the 28,791.
Yep.
Yeah, it's a nice sign. It's obviously the
Okay.
logo we use, the color scheme we use, and it's a wide screen, but it would fit all the text
Well,
we want.
but yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Then,
So, the other question would be, you mentioned you could reset it from the office.
Mhm.
If we were to replace the sign down at Clara Miller Park, same situation?
Yeah,
You'd be able
same
to replace it?
situation. I was hoping that there would be a discount if we bought two at once.
Mhm.
There wasn't. The quotes we submitted all were the price for one doubled. And so they're not offering any sort of a discount for a second one because of the way they have to build these and design them. We don't get any discount. What I would kind of prefer is that we go through the process of the one down at South Commerce and Glengarry just to make sure we're happy with it, we're satisfied with it, see how it works. I also, just my opinion, but until the master plan for Clara Miller is done, I just feel more comfortable waiting on that one, especially
Sure.
if there's no cost benefit to
Makes
doing it
sense.
now.
Would they hold the price for 2 years? Just
I
out
can
of
ask. I doubt it, but I can ask. I hope the
ask.
master plan's done in the spring. I think we're making quick progress on it, but I just, you never know what discussions might come up for the
Mhm.
park that could change what we want to do there.
Good point.
All right. Is that what you need for a motion?
okay, I'd like to make a motion that we go ahead with the new sign at South Commerce and Glengarry. The company is Sign Graphics, and it's the 29 by 87 with painted aluminum base and with 4 lines of text at a price of $28,791.50.
And I heard that as with funding to come out of cable franchise fees. If
I
approved.
thought I heard, no.
Yes.
So we have a motion, do we have a second?
Second. Well,
Second, Nedrow. So motion second, Nedrow. Further discussion? I think it's a good selection. I think it's going to be a good sign. I've spent a lot of time over the last couple months noticing signs as I go by. And this kind of sign is really good for putting out basic information. That's really what we want. We're not looking for something flashy or a big video board or whatever. We just want to be able to get out the basic information that we do now, so. Seeing no further discussion, roll call vote.
Scott?
Yes.
Nedrow?
Yes.
Sinkowitz?
Yes.
McGee?
Yes.
Dumont?
Yes.
Duff?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Quick question, Chief, is there some regulation or law about the signs, about how fast
Yes.
they can?
Municipal
Brighten
ordinance.
distance from the road, the colors, and things like that. Yeah, there is, and I don't know that a municipal sign is going to be covered by that, but I'm sure there's some guidance.
Okay.
Yeah,
My recollection from the many long discussions of it is that this sign is exactly the sort of thing that is acceptable under it.
Yeah, they actually reviewed our sign code to make sure what they were proposing wasn't too large or wasn't going to do anything that was outside of code. And we're not going to have constantly scrolling graphics. We're
Even
gonna-
if you have it, it wouldn't be constantly
Right.
scrolling through.
Yeah.
That was I remember when planning wrote the ordinance.
Guy slows down to read the last
Yeah,
paragraph.
yeah, it was a matter of like twice a minute or once every 2 minutes or
Yeah,
something
what
like
we
that.
would have is on one side, we would have our monthly meeting schedule like we do now, and that would stay the same for 30 days at a time. So people know when council, water board, ZBA, park is meeting. And on the flip side, we would have the opportunity to scroll a little bit more often, but we want to have the messages up long enough for them to sink in as
Mhm.
people see them. So it's not going to be a flashing, distractive thing. It's just going to be there for information.
Our recording secretary had a question?
Did we miss a couple items in between the approval of the consent agenda, warrants, minutes?
Let me see. Minutes, reports, and warrants are all on the consent agenda, so they're good. They were approved as part of the approval of consent.
Okay.
And just on the sign, just so you know, I was told it takes approximately 8 weeks from the time we sign an agreement to when a sign would be delivered and installed. It'll take me a little bit of time to get with them and verify what's going to happen, but residents will hopefully see this, early spring or so.
And my recollection is also that there's an extra fee if we don't wait until that it's cheaper to wait until the ground is thawed, so it's likely to be an April installation. Right.
Is the sign going to go exactly where the other one was?
Mhm.
Okay.
Yeah. It's in a good place. It'll just be much more visible.
What's the communication? Is it Wi-Fi
Mhm.
between the offices?
Yeah.
All right, I think that's all we've got on.
And sorry, just also following up on that, it's a really neat system. I'll log in on a website to actually change the message. So, you know, we can't let that password get out, or else we could have some shenanigans. But
Oh, Lord, no.
but it's a neat thing. I believe
Some
we
interesting
can
messages.
set it up to where it can be done remotely and it doesn't have to be done out of the office. And so it's a nice feature. So if things come up emergency basis, we can get online and update it immediately.
Somebody's going
Would you rethink the question of keeping the agendas of meetings on for 30 days without a change? It would seem to me that people are gonna maybe crack their neck and try and figure out what one side is changing, the other side is just hanging in there. I mean, it's just a.
I think as we get the hang of it, we'll figure
Yeah,
out
we'll
exactly
probably
the
do
way we want to
something.
do it.
Yeah.
And I would also expect that, you know, we would probably put up the meeting schedule, and then, you know, water board has its meetings, so then we'll
Yeah, just
roll them up and
roll
put
it
the next
around or
water
something.
board. So it might
Actually
be,
oscillate them back and forth or something.
or,
so,
yeah.
You don't want it to stop traffic.
No. Okay, item E, discussion, procedure to evaluate consultants. Mr. Sinkwitz asked to have this put on, and actually, after talking with him, I think it's a good idea. I talked with Nathan about this a little bit. Historically, at least as long as I've been around the village, the process we've gone through with consultants has been fairly ad hoc. We occasionally go out for bids, we occasionally go out for a review. The timing of that is not particularly set or standard. We don't really have a best practice in place for that. You know, as any of you know, if you work in any business, every now and then you go and you review your consultants, you go look at your options, you review their performance. I know Nathan, from talking to him, had already been doing a little bit of research along these lines. So I'm hoping we can come out of this with, you know, hopefully a proposal to, I would assume we'd want to put it to the administrator, put it to the admin committee, to come back to council with some recommendations for what those best practices would be. So that's what I think I'd like to see us able to come out of this discussion with. Having said that, this is Mr. Sinkwitz's item, so.
Yeah, well, we talked about it so many times, and as long as I've been in council, I think it's only been done 2 or 3 times. And I don't know what, every 3 years, every 5 years, I don't know if we want to put a timetable on it, but at least if we put a timetable on it, you can go do and say, well, let's put it off or do something. But I mean, just to have it, and it's just a good business practice.
Yeah, I think so. So I think what we can do is ask our administrator to follow up with further research. I think he's already reached out a little bit to the MML and some neighboring communities to find out what their rotation is. And it might very well be different times for different people. You may want to, you may want to review your lake consultant every 2 years and, your engineer every 6 years, or, your auditor. We have a lot of different consultants that we do. So I think I'd entertain a motion to ask the administrator to further research the issue of how we evaluate our consultants, and to put it on the administrative committee's agenda.
So moved. Second.
Motion Duff, second Scott. Further discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Mr. President, question, are you planning to fill the vacancy in the administrative committee?
Yes, but I think what we'll do is the same that we've done other times as well, which is to get our new council person on board, review all the committees, fill them then. We do have an administrative committee meeting scheduled for Friday morning. We don't have a whole lot on that, and I don't think we would have a lot more information to discuss in that one. So I would really expect the substantial discussion to be after, in the February meeting.
Okay.
All right. Next item, another discussion item, something I think we really do want to take a look at, electrical drop at Clara Miller Park. To give everybody a quick reminder and background, it's been talked about a lot over the years, the need for additional electricity there, especially for events like the carnival, like Tuesdays in the Park, other things that we do. When we got to talking about this last fall, we said, we're doing the master plan, so let's get the master plan in place. I think we should have the master plan in place this spring. I think we would also like to be ready to do something this spring. And the budget cycle is coming up soon. So I think, put all of that together, this feels to me like time to get a real cost and a plan around what we should do, come back with it. If it's something we want to do quickly or immediately, we can always make a budget amendment and, pull it into this year. But I think it's time to proceed.
Yeah, when we talked about that, because this is something that's been brought up, I can't tell you how many times. I thought we voted it in, and I worked the guardrails in the last, I said, why all these generators here? And it did dawn on me that we've been using generators all the time, and the drop wasn't there, but I really think that, especially with the corn roast, our 30th year, and from what I can see in sitting around talking to people in Parks and Rec, they're going all out to make that one heck of an affair. And we need the electrical drop. And I don't know if where the outhouse is and everything else, that drop, I would think would go to the outhouse, that building. So I don't know if we have to wait for the final drawings of the master plan to run a pole, or from the pole we have, run a line over there and get the drop. That's the only, I would just hate to cut
It's an
them short.
underground service, so you have to size your lines appropriate for the drop at the pole.
Right.
So you'll have to get with DTE and get your actual, what the drop they're giving you, which is typically a 200 amp service. Then an electrician will have to pull a line to the actual building, put a panel in. and
Yeah, it's
branch
not
off.
something, and it usually takes a while.
Not so much.
Well,
They could do it a couple days.
they could do it in a couple of days. Are you talking about Edison or a private contractor?
Private contractor.
Okay.
Edison, so it
mean,
would be
if we had to put a pole
it'd be
in or
very surprising that Edison hasn't already updated that to a 200 amp service. It's mainly the meter. So the CAN box would have to be
Yeah.
basically changed.
So it's really, might not be that much
Yeah,
involved.
if I'm assuming that they probably have a sized conduit, correct, for the
Uh-huh.
underground, and it's just a matter of pulling the old service and connecting a new one, pull it up through, put a new terminal box, and you're good.
And I think in everything that we've seen so
Well,
far.
it'd be nice
of-
for, during the summer with the Tuesdays in the
Yeah.
park, that we
Yeah.
have that ready to go.
Yeah, I think everything we've seen so far with master plan, the appropriate area for that electrical is gonna be right in the same
Right.
place. So I don't think
Yeah.
there's anything there
No,
that's gonna,
yeah, I mean, it's just a matter of
that should
update.
shift around. So I think what I would like is maybe a motion to have the administrator research, putting in an electrical drop at the park and come back to council with information.
Good enough.
Motion Dumont, second Sinkowitz. I heard good enough as a second. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. All right, item G, update on plans for Oak Island Park. Mr. Scott, this one is yours.
It was mine. It's actually mine and Nathan's together.
Or yours and Nathan, and whichever one of you would like to start, I'm happy to have started.
Well, I can just give you a little background in terms of timing. I think back in June, July, we had our Oak Island Park Association meeting, elected a new board. That new board took on the task of deciding what would like to be done in the park by actually distributing some preliminary layouts and a voting ballot. So I have the copy of the ballot here. I think every resident on Oak Island, as I look at these numbers, maybe barring one, participated in that voting. The voting involved probably the more critical issue, which is the number of parking spots and where they were going to be located. And there is a consensus. And from here, I guess I'll let Nathan pick it up. You've been talking directly to Kara, who's the president of the board.
Yeah, there was a meeting here at Village Hall in November of the homeowners who surround this section that you're looking at, where the park would go. And we've been trying really hard to get as much feedback as we can from the people who are closest to the park. We don't want there to be any surprises, or we don't want to put in something that people would be unhappy with. And it's been a good process, and without going into a lot of details, it's really not a very complex park. What we're talking about doing is hopefully getting some better sod down, some better grass down. There's a lot of trees there, there's a lot of shade, but we're going to talk to a landscaper about that. A couple newer benches and some landscaping around the exterior. Not sure what that would be yet, but we'll get some options. And that's about it. There's no play structure that's been, as far as like a playground, nothing like a playground or anything like that. It's more of a quiet area that we think would fit in well with the surrounding community.
There were items voted on, from fire pits to horseshoe rings to garden.
Yeah, I was thinking more of like the Amenia style playground.
Yeah.
That I don't think.
Oh, you
there
mean
was
structures like that?
Yeah, like a
Probably gazebo.
yeah.
Where would be the parking? Is that going to be on North Street?
There is a.
That's the term. It's North Street, isn't it? That little street that.
Yeah, that leads into Bill Borndorf.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I
Is
think,
that where the parking?
yeah, and the parking is one thing that there's consensus around how many spots. There's still some discussion about where they should go, and I want to thank Mr. Powell because he has been very helpful with his time in helping conceptualize some different options. And we have a little bit more feedback to get. And one of the things I wanted to ask council was where we want to take this next. Once we get that item solidified, do we want to go to the capital subcommittee, bring it straight back to council, have a public hearing on it? But I think we're close to having something that at least the surrounding neighbors are excited about. It's not an expensive project, the way that it's been perceived.
How many parking areas are we looking at? 2 or 3?
Well, it's somewhere between 3 and 5. That's the tussle that's going on. There's 2 spots that Mr. Powell designed.
Somewhere
Total
between
of
3 and
5.
5. I see 4 coming.
A consensus.
Well,
huh?
the only thing is these parks were not necessary. I got the impression that the pocket park was something that would be utilized in a neighborhood, not people driving over to get to it. So, you put 1 or 2, 3 parking spaces, or even 4, is fine. And the other thing, and like I said, I wasn't privileged to any of these hearings or saw this chart or anything. One thing that's important is the people that live on there, because they have such short driveways, if they have some type of a graduation or an event at their home, they want to be able to not necessarily pull into the park, but pull off the road. And I think as long as that, and everything else I've heard.
An ongoing topic.
Yeah, it's
in
been an
these.
ongoing, it's actually been accommodated in some of your drawings, Mr. Powell. It really gets down to, I think, the major consensus is to get it to be as much of a part of green as possible. So I think where it's going to end up is 2 with a turnaround, or a little bit less than what you proposed was the proposal. I do have something here that was the voting ballot. So 2 in the park, and then the possibility of using the 3 in front of Mr. Morse's. And he's been in the discussion ever since, which is still part of the park. It's not part of his property, so we'll see how that goes.
Morse or Mersch?
Mersch, I'm sorry.
Oh, that part that he has in front there?
Yeah, that's part of the park itself. He was in a discussion on it, and what's going to happen from here is there's going to be another meeting, and then I think where the direction that the Oak Island Association is heading is probably to have a meeting maybe at the Capitol level, so we can get all of this vented before we go into the question of the public hearing.
Vetted, not vented.
Vetted.
It'll probably get
I'm sorry,
vetted,
we don't
too.
have vetted.
Yeah, so I think the process from here will really be, this is more informational and update than anything else.
Yeah.
We'll bring it back to Park Capital Committee. They'll take a review of it. They'll look at what the budget is to do this. Should be fairly straightforward and minimal. And then we can bring that into our budget process and work right through what we need to do. Yes.
Mr. Powell, we had talked about coordinating the paving around the road project that would be occurring there anyway. Is that still part of our upcoming plan?
It is certainly, it would make a great deal of sense to do any paving in that park at the same time we do the roads. That is correct.
Is that little loop around the sign gonna stay?
That's one of the options. That's up to the residents.
Yeah, there'll be a turnaround, that's all.
Just
been
depends on
agreed.
what the configuration of that is.
Yeah.
See, because I was involved with, I think I was the council president when we did the paving on the island, and Attorney Conley, I think whatever we did, because the village has maintained the road and the path that it was in, we were able to utilize that, and I know some people thought that, they got property for free, we took part of the park, but I was under the impression that, and like I said, I'm not privileged to any of this discussion, but that part that Mersch had was not, it might have been part of the park, but no different than the other homes that took part of the park land. That it was his and the neighbor to use.
No, I think we've cleared up all the legal issues around it, and the
Yeah.
park is the village's, and we
Okay.
have the clear right to do with it
Okay.
what we will.
Good, okay.
Yes.
That is a short declarative statement for a long process. Okay, so I think that's all we have. I don't think we need a motion out of this. Any other questions about it? All right, thanks. Glad to see it moving along. Second call to the public, opportunity for citizens to address the council regarding any and all village business. So I will open the second call. Mr. Mel. Let's get you the mic.
Thank you. Bob Malik, 1620 Thurston. First of all, Mr. Sinkwitz, thank you for the poke there, but I don't need it. And I would like to thank the council for sticking with the procedures that they have done in the past about nominating somebody to replace or fill the vacancy on council. And I have another question. You're talking about paving, and you're going to put some paving around possibly on Oak Island Park. What's the status on Wakedo? Are we ever going to pave that since we're doing paving? We got 2 streets in the village that need some work, and I'm just as a resident asking.
So I think the unpaved portions in the park are something that we're looking at in terms of potentially abandoning them altogether. The part that is dirt right now, we don't have a plan one way or the other at the moment. Evergreen problem.
Yeah, it's, I've been here 40 years and it's been mud, so,
Yeah.
it needs to be addressed.
Anybody else second call to the public? Seeing none, I will close the second call. Moves us on to recommendations from the chief.
Good evening. I figured I might as well stand over here since I'm going to be reading some of this stuff. My first request is to hire an additional reserve officer and provide the training, uniforms, and equipment not to exceed the $1,500 from budgeted funds. I think it's going to be significantly less than that. However, the reserve officer training, the cost itself is $500, and we have a very good candidate, and I think it's going to work out really well.
All right. Do I hear a motion
So moved.
to hire Ann Grunwald as police reserve officer? Motion Duff, second Dumont. Further discussion? Just to be clear, this will now give us 2 reserve officers or 3?
Actually, it's going to give us 3. We utilize our reserve officers obviously more in the summertime, but Officer Grunwald, the current Officer Grunwald, has been very, very helpful even during this time. So, but it's going to give us 3. And obviously, when we started this, my goal was going to be 6. That was a little optimistic. We wait for the right people to come along, and I think we have some really good ones, and we're going to be utilizing them. So we're looking forward to it.
All right. Further discussion? Roll call vote?
Scott?
Yes?
Medrow?
Yes.
Sinkwitz?
Yes.
McGee?
Yes.
Dumont?
Yes.
Duff?
Yes.
Thank you. And as far as number 2, the overview of the 2017 Police Department activities, I put together a fairly significant 2-page report. I don't want to read it verbatim, but I do want to touch on a few things. One of them is we, as a department, spent over 300 hours of certified training in the last year and have met or exceeded all the mandatory in-service training that's set by the state of Michigan. Some of our successes, obviously, we promoted Sergeant Morosco, as well as hired an additional reserve officer. They've both been a great asset to the department, and I appreciate both of them. Sergeant Morosco also completed firearms instructor school, and so we have our own in-house firearms instructor. Our bike patrol was a huge success. Officer Grunwald and myself took part in that quite a bit. We were able to meet many new families. It was great to get to know our community a little bit better, and it was well received. We continued with our community education with our Citizen Police Academy, and Officer Sutsko assisted several of our other community police officers with educating and training. And again, this is a great program, and if given an opportunity, I would encourage you to attend a class or two. If you have an opportunity, get with me. We'll be able to set that up. We really appreciate what we're able to do with our citizens. We usually have about 40 to 45 in these classes, and it educates them on what we do on a day-to-day basis, and it really helps us. So we also teamed with TIA, the Traffic Improvement Association, for our traffic control for one of our local subdivisions. We also continue performing our vacation checks. That's a very popular home security program. A little disappointed in our crime report. And if you'll look, our numbers went up significantly as far as what we've been doing. We made over 1,100 traffic stops, issued 684 citations. Our Group A crimes, or our more serious crimes, were up 16.84%, which were mostly due to fraud and ID type of theft, which we really, as a police department, can't do much with. But we went from 22 in 2016 to 33 in 2017, so that was a very significant uptick in that crime. Our arrests for the department were considerably higher at 71 compared to 37 in 2016, so that was, we're definitely out there. We're much more busier than we have ever been. Our calls for service increased as well, coming in at 2,956 calls compared to 2,586. So we're up, obviously, we're very busy out there. We've had a very busy but a productive year, and I appreciate the opportunity that you've given us over this year, and I think we're going to continue on. It might be a time to address staffing issues. Again, just do some minor adjustments. It's not going to be much, but it's something we're going to have to look into eventually. But for that, I'll leave it at that. If be willing to answer any questions.
Yep. Couple of questions. So we did see an uptick in a couple things, and we've
Correct.
discussed that kind of as we've gone through the year.
Yes.
Overall, though, safe to say that we are still a very safe community?
Absolutely. When we say uptick, you have to remember, when we're talking in small numbers.
We're coming from
Yeah.
a very
Well,
low base, so it
when
really
we go
takes,
from,
it really takes one person
correct.
to create an uptick.
Yep. Remember, it goes up 50%. If I only had one last year and I have two this year, that's 50%. So that's the way they look at it. And you're right, overall, we're a very safe community.
I just want to reassure everybody that there's not
Yeah,
a massive
we don't have a
crime wave
massive
that is
crime
broken
wave,
out. There's-
no, and we're not doing our jobs. We are actually out there doing much more than we ever have, and also with our increased activity, my officers are out there being very active and proactive. That also, we discover crime, so.
And I know on traffic, we've discovered quite an uptick in monitoring down on Penny Lake.
Correct, yeah, and like I said, hey, you know what, that's good for us. Also this year, we implemented a biannual review program for evaluation for all our officers, me included. I get my annual review, or biannual review. And we take a really critical look at ourselves, and we're probably harder on ourselves than you guys could be. We have another one coming up here in the next couple of weeks for the last 6 months. So it's going to be interesting to see how everything pans out, the improvements that I've been able to make personally, as well as the other officers, because I have them critique me too. So this isn't a one-way street. I don't have to look down my nose at them, but I actually have them critique me too.
Always
So
popular 360-degree review.
exactly. So
Another follow-up question. So I know we've engaged with TIA in terms of South Commerce and reviewing the
Correct.
pedestrian situation there. Do we have any news from them? Have we heard much on that front?
not yet. I know wintertime is very tough for them to do some of the things, and I'm sure this spring
There are
we're
fewer
going to be.
pedestrians the last couple weeks than there might
And I believe your city manager.
I was just going to point out, we've had some discussion with them, and we didn't give them a strict deadline on when to get a report back, but we are asking for their eyes to look at the possibility of a pathway down South Commerce, and they're a good organization. I've been really impressed with what they've done for us so far, and as soon as we have something from them, we'll bring it back to council.
Okay. And then the last of my questions was really just around Marine Patrol. The the paragraph under there ends, we also added, and I believe there's a line missing
And
there.
actually,
I'm
that
wondering what we added.
That line was something that I meant to take out completely out. That was from a previous. I kind of take highlights from the different things, and I didn't catch that one. But yes, we did not add anything more than.
So we also added nothing.
We added nothing, and it worked out well.
Okay. Thanks. Those were the questions I had.
Just a couple of them.
Sure.
Certification of the department chief.
Yes.
Are we still working on that?
The accreditation, turns out
Accreditation.
it's probably not, well, I don't want to say worth our while, because that is not, it is going to be an extremely costly venture for us to continue on down that path.
Okay.
What we have found is the city of Wixom actually, who Chief Ron Moore and me had actually went into this together. He has actually submitted a letter to them withdrawing from that. The accreditation process sounded good and looks good on paper, and it is probably a needed thing when you have a large department where you need to be able to have several areas to keep a close eye on, where this department, everybody pretty much knows what everybody's doing, and it would be a nice feather in my cap to have before we leave, but I'm afraid that it's going to be too costly, too time-consuming. I would rather have my sergeant out on the road 18 hours than it would take a week to do this. So after much consideration, I'm actually going to submit a letter of withdrawal for our accreditation process next year, or next month, at the Michigan Association of Chiefs of Police conference that I'll be attending. And I wanted to do that in person because I wanted to personally explain why. They threw some things on there that I think are directed towards the larger departments where they can assign a person to do this on a full-time basis. And I think, and I don't know, Jennifer, if you wanted to add, are you probably seeing some of the same things from other departments too? It sounds great, and we'd love to be able to get that gold seal on the door, but at what cost? And I don't think that, I don't think we're in that bad a shape. We're doing a lot of good things, and I think considering we're going down the right road.
This sounds to me, well, I think there are kind of two things out of this. One of which is whether we get the official accreditation or not, finding out what those best practices are, what those standards are, and meeting them benefits us to begin with. The second thing is, it sounds to me like it's maybe an opportunity for that organization to look at accreditation for small departments as a
Correct.
Overall.
And on that note, we met with risk management last week to go over our department, and our department is probably the best it's been as far as our risk management perception, the way they look at us. It's, what do you say, in 15 years? He said we are doing really, really well. So I'm very proud of that fact, and I'm looking forward to a really good year.
A couple other short ones if
Sure.
I could. I think I saw a figure that astounded me, and I know we've had open conversation about this, and that was the figure of death due to narcotics, Narcan. You don't have to be specific about the village, but I'm just curious, have we leveled? I know that really takes a deep amount of concentration by your department in here.
And have we leveled? No.
No. Okay.
Unfortunately, we're not. The surrounding areas, good or bad, a lot of it doesn't occur here. A lot of the children of our residents are affected, but it occurs in other larger communities where, say, the police department isn't quite as knowledgeable about what goes on in that neighborhood. Our people, our officers, are really, really in tune to what's going on in the neighborhood. They know the people. You know, my wife laughs because I know a lot of the dogs' names of our residents, and it's funny, but you know, I wouldn't have it any other way. I probably know 3,500 out of 4,000 people that live here, and have some interaction with them. Our officers, the same thing. Our officers on nights deal with a completely different set of residents than I do. But they can tell me about those, and we have those conversations. And so we put it all together. We have a pretty good grasp about what goes on in the village of Wolverine Lake. I can't say that for other cities, nor can you expect that to happen.
Yeah.
But, so when we see something out of the ordinary, we usually act on it, and we know these people, and so they're less likely to do it in their own backyard. So whether we're scaring them out of here and it's not happening nearly as much, we still had 4 last year.
Yeah.
To me, that's a scary thing. When I was in high school, you didn't have that, and you do now. And it's not just we had a 68-year-old overdose on heroin. You know, at the same week, we had a 17-year-old overdose on heroin. So you have everything from the grandparents down to the high school kid. And this high school kid was a sports star. So it's non-discriminatory. It's everybody.
You're saying heroin is compared to prescription?
Correct.
drugs, okay.
Yeah, the 68-year-old started on prescription pills 2 years ago and couldn't afford them, so he went to heroin. It's scary. It is really scary. And unfortunately, the only thing we can do is try to educate them. And like I said, our officers, especially on midnights, they know a whole different clientele than I do, but they see it. They see it. So
The interplay between youth assistance and the police officer, I assume
that still continues, and we do a lot of good work. We do, you know, we work with Lash. In fact, I just did a video with Lash last month, the Lakes area safe haven, and we're doing as much as we can with the limited resources we have. So
I have one real off-the-wall question.
Sure.
Lit buoys, did you and the DPW ever get a chance to go?
We're still reviewing.
Still reviewing?
Yeah.
We
Okay.
want to have something in place, obviously, for the springtime.
I
And
expect it'll be an ice melt off any day now.
if not February, we should have a recommendation no later than March to get it
Okay.
purchased. But we're
I was
okay.
just curious. All right. Water board asked. So
Yep.
Thank you.
Other folks, questions? I think that's what we've got then.
thank you
Free
very
to
much
go.
for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chief.
Thanks, Chief.
All right. Item J, request to enter closed session after item 17 to discuss 2 items, negotiating a collective bargaining agreement, and to discuss at employee's request dismissal, suspension, or disciplining of said village employee as set forth in MCL 15268A. Do I hear a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Motion Duff, go into closed session following item 17. Further discussion? Roll call vote.
Scott?
Yes.
Nedrow?
Yes.
Sinkwitz?
Yes.
McGee?
Yes.
Dumont?
Yes.
Duff?
Yes.
All right, motion carries. Pending business, we have none tonight. Update from Chief Ellsworth, anything else you'd like to add?
think I just set it up. Thank you.
Update from the treasurer.
If I could, Mr. President, for council's benefit and also for the gentleman in the second row, when we go to market for the bonds, when we're going to sell roughly $750,000, it's essentially done on a bid process. I'll make some informal inquiries among our, like with our bank of deposit, also with the bank that's bought 2 of our prior issues. But we have a point where bids come in and they are tabulated, and repayment schedules are, it's not a straight, it's not like amortizing a mortgage. There may be more due in 1 year than another. So it's structured in a certain way based on cash flows that we're going to get or expect to get on the special assessment roll. So it's not a, it's completely above board, and you'll have the chance to approve that when those bids actually come back.
And that's all essentially taken care of by our
Financial
by our
advisor.
Financial advisor. All right. Update from the administrator.
I was meeting with the chief last week, and we received a delivery that I wanted to highlight to council from the Mitkowski family. And this is a really awesome thing. It's a book that was made about Gene, and it includes Gene-isms and his top 25 Gene-isms. It also includes a lot of things that people wrote about Gene on Facebook and other places, including some things that some of us wrote about Gene in the days after he passed. And I just want to let council know that this is going to be upstairs. We're going to display this on our glass top across from our entryway. And if you get a chance, please take a look at it. It's a very nice tribute to someone who was obviously very important to all of us here. And that's all I have tonight.
All right. Council comments. We'll start down at this end of the table.
No comment?
Scott?
Keep your sidewalks full of salt. That's all I can say.
Thought spring was here.
Spring is here.
You got sidewalks down there?
Spring is here for a day.
For a day. Yeah, it's raining out there.
No comment,
Sikowitz?
Just, I hope everybody comes here for Valentine's Day and celebrates Valentine's Day here at the council next month.
What could possibly be a more romantic date night for the residents of the village?
Such truer words have never been spoken.
We'll get some soft candlelight. We'll get somebody with maybe an accordion in the back.
Some, what is that, what's that red cake?
You know, the little Lady of Spain or whatever. A violin. Would a violin be better? Or maybe we should just hold a council meeting.
Whatever
with
the
lights on.
Italian instrument is.
All right. I have no further comments. Do I hear, actually, I don't think we even need a motion.
Motion to.
Yeah, motion to adjourn to closed session.
Closed session.
So motion Sikowitz, second.
Second.
Duff. All in favor? Aye. We are adjourned to closed session.